February 21st, 1804. A single clunky steam engine, just 8 feet long, sparked a bet worth $85,000, an untested gamble that experts called impossible. Everyone expected iron wheels to slip, money to be lost, and the old order of canals to rule forever. But this crude machine would do something so simple, so shocking, it would topple the wisdom of giants like James Watt and trigger a railway revolution that changed the world. The real question is not just how it worked, it is why nobody saw it coming. Samuel Humphrey stood in the shadow of his ironworks, watching workers and rivals gather around a battered parchment. The wager was clear: 500 guineas, worth about $85,000 today, would go to whichever man was right about the power of steam. Humphrey, confident and restless, had staked this fortune against Richard Trevithick, betting that a machine could do what every horse and wagon had done for decades. The rules were simple. If Richard Trevithick's new steam engine could haul 10 tons of iron along 9 miles of rail, Humphrey would win the bet. If it failed, the money and the pride of Penydarren would be lost. Few outside the ironworks believed the gamble was anything but reckless. Trevithick's invention looked more like a rolling boiler than a locomotive. Just 8 feet long and weighing 5 tons, the engine was a patchwork of riveted iron plates, pipes, and a single oversized flywheel. It hissed and clanked, spitting steam in unpredictable bursts. Compared to the sleek lines of canal boats or the familiar strength of a team of draft horses, this machine seemed primitive, almost laughable. But Humphrey saw something the others missed. He saw a chance to upend the old order, to make the impossible possible. For Trevithick, the stakes ran deeper than money. His reputation, his future as an engineer, and the trust of every skeptical eye in the valley hung on this run. As the morning grew brighter and the crowd pressed in, the air thickened with anticipation. The bet was no longer just about gold. It was about whether a handful of men, a crude engine, and a stretch of rail could rewrite the rules of industry. Doubt ran deep among the engineers of early 19th century Britain. The very idea of a steam-powered locomotive pulling heavy loads across iron rails was dismissed as fantasy by the men who shaped industrial progress. James Watt, whose steam engines powered factories and mines, saw rail locomotion as a mechanical dead end. The prevailing wisdom held that smooth iron wheels would simply spin on iron rails, unable to find enough grip to move anything but their own weight. Leading engineers calculated the numbers and concluded friction was not enough. Canal companies, flush with investor money, poured resources into waterways and horse-drawn wagons. Their ledgers told a simple story. Moving a ton of goods by canal was reliable, predictable, and profitable. Rails, in their eyes, were little more than a novelty for horses, not a foundation for the future. Every pound spent on a canal was a safe bet against the chaos of unproven machines. The economics favored the status quo, and so did the science, at least as the experts understood it. Trevithick's engine, with its high-pressure boiler and iron wheels, was seen as reckless tinkering. No respected authority believed a crude contraption could outperform a team of horses, let alone haul 10 tons of iron. The skepticism was not just technical, it was institutional. The establishment's confidence in canals and horses was so complete that even the possibility of success seemed threatening. For Trevithick, the only way to answer these doubts was not with debate, but with demonstration, a public trial that would put physics to the test right in front of the doubters. At 9 in the morning, Trevithick crouched beside the firebox, coaxing the first flames into life. Steam began to build, hissing through valves and rattling the iron plates. The crowd pressed closer as the engine lurched forward, its wheels gripping the cast iron rails with a force that defied every expert calculation. 10 tons of iron loaded in 5 wagons, 70 men crowded wherever they could find space, some perched on the iron, others clinging to the sides. The machine pulled away from Penydarren, smoke trailing behind, the sound of metal on metal echoing down the valley. The engine simply refused to give way. The route stretched nearly 10 miles, twisting through the Welsh hills, past stone cottages and coal-blackened fields. The locomotive climbed gradients, rattled over plate joints and thundered past obstacles. Trevithick wrote that they proceeded with 10 tons of iron, 70 men riding, nearly 5 miles an hour when working. No water was added to the boiler along the way, a feat in itself given the distance and strain. For over 4 hours the engine kept moving, never slipping, never stalling. By the time they reached the canal wharf at Abercynon, the impossible had become undeniable. The weight, the distance, the speed. Every number the doubters had thrown as a barrier had been swept aside by a machine that would not be denied. Just miles into the journey, the sound of success gave way to something far less triumphant. Under the weight of 5 tons of locomotive, 10 tons of iron, and the crush of 70 men, the cast iron plate rails began to fail. These rails, designed for the gentle tread of horse-drawn wagons, cracked and splintered as the engine passed. Workmen scrambled to patch the worst breaks, prying up shattered plates and wedging in makeshift repairs. But the damage kept spreading. Each loud report of iron snapping underfoot sent a ripple of worry through the crowd. Richard Trevithick, watching with folded arms, seized on the chaos. He argued that the rules of the wager required a round trip, not just a single run. With the rails in ruins and the return leg impossible, Trevithick refused to concede defeat. The dispute grew heated, echoing off the broken stones. What had begun as a bold demonstration now hung in the balance. Not because the engine lacked power, but because the world it ran on simply wasn't ready to bear its weight. A small scale rig stands ready, its iron wheels perched on a strip of rail. The dynamometer, an old engineer's tool for measuring force, is clipped between the engine and its load. The demonstration begins with a gentle pull on the rope, first on a wooden plank, then on iron rails. On wood, the reading climbs quickly, muscles straining to get the wheels moving. But the moment the wheels hit iron, the numbers drop, sometimes to less than 1/10 of the force needed before. Even with a heavy load behind, the wheels grip and roll without slipping. The coefficient of friction between iron and iron, about 0.3 in dry conditions, proves more than enough. The real magic is in rolling resistance. On rails, the effort to move 1 ton is just a fraction of what it takes on a road. This is what Trevithick's critics missed. With rails, a small engine can do the work of a team of horses using just a trickle of coal. The physics did not just work, it changed the economics of transport forever. Which modern technology, quietly doubted today, might shock us in the same way 50 years from now? By 1825, engineers had abandoned brittle plate rails for tough, flanged edge rails, rails that could finally carry the weight and power Trevithick had proved possible. George Stephenson, a colliery engineer from Northumberland, took that lesson to heart. He built the Stockton and Darlington Railway, the world's first commercial line designed for steam. On opening day, Stephenson's locomotion number 1 pulled coal wagons and passengers over 25 miles of iron track, the rails holding firm beneath the load. Where Penydarren's rails had shattered, these new rails held steady, carrying industry into a new era. The simple insight, stronger rails, meant steam power could scale from experiment to enterprise. For the first time, the promise of the railway was real, and the world began to follow in Stephenson's tracks. Richard Trevithick died in 1833, penniless, and nearly forgotten. His grave, unmarked for decades, stands in stark contrast to the monuments raised for others who followed his path. Today, a single modern locomotive weighs over 200 tons and delivers 4,500 horsepower, enough strength to pull 15,000 tons across a continent. Yet the world these machines move was unlocked by a man who never saw a penny from the revolution. He proved possible. The Penydarren engine managed just one full run before the world called it a failure, but the principle it proved now underpins every supply chain on Earth. Which overlooked technology today will be remembered as the next Penydarren, dismissed by experts but destined to change everything. Share your prediction below. Every supply chain, city, and journey today traces back to a machine once dismissed as impossible. Innovation rarely looks impressive at first, but then it remakes the world. The next revolution may arrive just as quietly. Which overlooked idea today will shape tomorrow? Drop your prediction below.